Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to talk about the Mystic and Spectres rare machine cards that have returned to North America. So this particular event is a kind of special type of one in the sense that there are several new cards added to the regular rare egg machine, which means it costs only 5 magic stones, but there will be no collateral benefits, no Godfist exclusives, and about 50% of the rolls are going to be just the bottom evolution Pantheon cards, which, like, Pantheon cards do have some value, but the fact that you don't get to skip multiple steps just makes it a little bit of an extra hurdle. But at the same time, no Godfest exclusives can be a little painful, along with the fact that the real true prizes of this event are really at the very top. And that only comprises 4% of the total rolling pool. And that's not very good odds when you really think about it. So I dislike these type of rare machines where they slap in a bunch of new cards in the regular rare machine with no option to monster exchange for the top rarity. And while the 6-star cards do have value, they are starting to fall a little bit further behind. And the biggest issue, I think, as a whole for this event is not only the rare machine aspect of it, but the fact that only 2 of the cards actually received a buff since the original debut early this year. So no card actually gets nerfed in Puzzle and Dragons, but if you don't receive buffs, you tend to kind of fall behind because other cards receive buffs and therefore they advance further. You can almost think of it as like the power creep of, or the power of a card and pad is kind of like paddling a canoe against the current. If you stop paddling, aka getting buffs, you just fall further and further behind. With that being said, if you've never rolled in this event before, there is still value across all rarities. Like, the bottom rarity, I feel, still has value. Like, you're probably gonna get lots of duplicates if you roll quite heavily, so you might just catch them all, so to speak. But at the same time, they can potentially fill new holes in your monster box. But with that being said, if you are a newer player, I feel like this won't be the greatest place for you overall to spend your stones because the cards are a little bit more situational, I feel, overall, and the chances of getting happy as a newer player, I feel, is going to be less beneficial. With that being said, let's take a look at all of the cards. So, of all the 7-star cards, every single one of them is a truly outstanding, miraculous, magical leader. They can all clear the current hardest dungeon, which is Alt Ruler of Hell's Hall, or Shura Realm 2. And Sena is my most consistent team, mostly because it's the only one I have on Mantastic account, and I just happen to have a lot of the strong subs. But what makes Sena great is that they have 3 skill boosts in their base form and 1 skill bind resist. So you get closer to that 20-25 turn transforming need. So it's not the worst hurdle to overcome. With 2 leaders, you only need 19 other effective skill boosts to actually transform your leaders. But once you do transform, you have one of the most powerful and easy to use plus consistent leader skills in the game. And what makes this leader skill consistent is the fact that your Sena, or with both leaders, you will have a 2-turn cooldown, which means you can self-system to generate 3 fire, 3 water, and 3 hearts every single turn. And the way their leader skill multipliers work is when you match fire and water orbs, which you just generated anyways, you receive 75% damage reduction, and you have flat health and flat RCV, along with a massive 441 times attack multiplier. So that means you can deal massive amounts of damage, you can stall with relative ease, you can tank damage, and you get bonus combos on top of that to make your life even easier. If you match just 1 water, 1 fire, 1 heart combo, that turns into 7. So that ends up doing tremendous amounts of damage. And for the vast majority of dungeons in the game, that's probably going to be more than enough damage to actually just sweep a given floor. So what are the main drawbacks to Sena teams? Well, they're vulnerable to orb locks. If your board has multiple locked orbs, there is the chance that you don't actually generate 3 fire, 3 water, and 3 heart orbs, which means you could fall dead because all your damage reduction is tied to matching fire and water combos. If you don't have those 2, you don't have much effective health. So that's definitely by far their biggest weakness, along with the fact that this is kind of the norm though, but they are bind vulnerable pre-transform. But again, with all the different bind immunity weapons out there, such as Leyland's Earring, skill boost plus bind immunity, it kind of solves that issue anyways. Another possible drawback is there's no auto follow-up attack, which doesn't matter as much if you're playing through World of Carnage or Shura Realms, but it has a bit more implications if you're playing arenas because the arenas tend to have many more resolve spawns by comparison. Sena is definitely much more geared towards playing World of Carnage style content because with any system team, you have to dedicate active skill slots to that system, which in turn means you have less options for countering various mechanics. And then one other notable downside that I found for myself was that Sena is quite disadvantaged against Sun Quan in Alt Ruler of Hell's Hall because Sun Quan has 50% damage reduction due to being water type as well as reducing 50% damage from attacker type cards. And Sena is an attacker. Sena is often your hardest hitting card on your team, so it just makes your life a little bit harder. But with that being said, there are so many more benefits going on for them because a VDP with them is pretty much going to hit damage cap, especially if you pop a Grandis active with relative ease. Damage comes easily for Sena teams. And you can use cards like Christmas Gremry, Grandis, Gung-Ho Lakshmi. You have options. You have Paulo, and there's quite a few things. And for myself, it's my best team to clear, but I haven't given much Ryume attempts with Mantastic. They have Ryume from last time. I haven't really made many attempts yet, but I will see what I can do later on this week. For Sena's Weapon Assist, you get a skill boost and a Dragon Killer. And that is nice, along with being the only combination of those in the entire game. And you also get attack, RCV, and movement time. And those are nice buffs to have, but the biggest drawback is the opportunity cost of not using their base form. That is, Sena is one of the best leaders in the entire game, and choosing not to use them for a okay weapon assist is a bad idea. Next is Ryume, and Ryume was one of the 2 cards that received buffs, and they received a massive buff because now they have 4 skill boosts in their base form, which means with 2 leaders, you have 8 skill boosts right away. And that's going to make your life much easier to transform because now you only need to have 17 skill boosts across all your weapons and subs, which makes your life much easier. And once they do transform, they are able to deal spectacular amounts of damage because they have 4/7 combos, 2 L awakenings, and a large attack stat. So with an L plus 7 combos, you're hitting tremendously high amounts of damage, and you can also inherit the Spider Lady's Weapon Assist, which provides 2 L awakenings, which is almost going to guarantee your capping on a very regular basis. But in addition to that, they have a 3-turn active skill, which is almost systemable with dual leaders. If you're playing through like Shura 1 or lower, you can utilize dupes, and that means with 3 Ryumes, you have permanent +3 combos, no Skyfalls, bonus movement time, and 3 fire, light, and heart orbs being made every single turn. So that is a tremendous amount of damage output because when you think about it, if you had only just 2 light orbs prior to using an active skill, you now have 5, which in turn means you're probably going to proc all your damage multipliers, and you're going to most likely walk over a given spawn. And if you look at their multipliers, they're huge. You have the 2.56 times health, which definitely aids you overcoming the health thresholds in World of Carnage 2. You also have a much bigger attack multiplier compared to Sena teams. You have more RCV, so you're probably going to heal back to full health with relative ease, and you have the same amount of damage reduction. The main drawback is you don't get bonus combos unless you use your active skill, but that gives you no Skyfalls, which means 10 combo cards tend to be a little harder because you have to match Ls. Any kind of L triggers your damage multiplier and damage reduction. So that is definitely makes life much easier because a Jammer L, a Poison L, Heart L, it doesn't matter what kind of L you match, you receive your damage reduction. And the main drawbacks to Ryume is that you have to use Dragon and God type cards, which is okay. There are enough to really work around it, but the biggest hindrance is the fact that VDP or Void damage is going to be challenging to perform because Ryumes are your hardest hitting cards and none of them have VDP. So the best solution tends to be using something like Fagan Rai or Dire, who have Void damage, Void active skills, but I would definitely give more priority to Fagan Rai because the 4 turns of Void damage, Void is meaningful when you're facing spawns that have too much effective health to kill in 1 turn, or they have super resolve such as Spica in World of Carnage 1, for instance, so that helps there. And Fagan Rai gives you the attack buff, so that can also reduce the need to bring an attack buff on the team elsewhere, along with the fact that Fagan Rai doesn't have 10 combo. And as I mentioned already, with matching an L and giving yourself no Skyfalls, it's going to be difficult to potentially hit 10 combos maybe for that given card. So Dire has more inconsistencies, whereas Fagin Rise, just 7 combos, you're going to proc that damage on a much more regular basis. So if you can overcome Voids and then naturally make a follow-up attack somewhere on your team, you are going to be able to overcome the vast majority of spawns, and they should be able to clear all dungeons within the game right now, assuming you have a team that can actually make them work, but most notably a way to counteract damage Void. For their weapon assist, they give a skill boost and a Devil Killer, and those are powerful awakenings. It's the only combination we have for those two, and Devils tend to be the most dangerous spawn as a general rule of thumb. There is a notable Devil floor in World of Carnage 1, and there is Gills, the final boss in World of Carnage 2, who is a Devil. So having Devil damage is meaningful for sure. Skill boost is nice, and the active skill is also strong. You have Unable to Match Orb effects fully cleared, all bind and awoken binds, heal to full health, plus 3 combos for 2 turns. Lots of magical aspects to this weapon, but the problem is it's the opportunity cost of not using their base form, which is arguably one of the best leaders in the game. And if you even have a duplicate, you probably want to run one as a sub, because now you have a perfect system where you get to have no Skyfalls, bonus combos, orb generation, movement time, board unlock. You just are going to be somewhat unstoppable with that case. So I would only consider this weapon if you had 3 of them, and I feel like that's not really going to be the case for the vast majority of players. So the last 7-star card of this event, which is again another amazing leader, is Mccash. So same 25 turn to transform, but they bring 3 skill boosts but no skill bind resist. They actually bring no skill bind resist in either form, so you just need to be aware of that and make sure you team build accordingly, because you need to have 1 card with at least 2 skill bind resist or inherit a weapon with 1. But once you do transform, you have one of the highest amounts of effective health possible in the game, because you have 93.75% damage reduction. So 16 times effective health. You probably would never need to actually use a damage reduction active skill, because you should be able to tank everything with that unless it's something truly outrageous overall, which was not meant to be survived. And in addition to that, you have one of the most interesting leader skills, I'd say, in the entire game. So they provide a whole plethora of beneficial aspects in addition to that massive amount of damage reduction. They give 5 seconds of bonus movement time, so dual leaders is 10 seconds. Wow. You have bonus combos when matching any 2 colors. You get plus 4 combos with dual leaders. You also get auto follow-up attack when matching 2 colors. You have a huge 400 times attack multiplier and the most outrageously high personal damage almost possible. You have 4/7 combos, 3 different killers, and a VDP. You're going to be damage capping against a large majority of spawns. In addition to this, they have an easy to activate attack multiplier. You only need to match 2 colors and you have 400 times attack. And it's any 2 colors. And also, if you notice, there is no actual color restriction for team building. So you could use cards of a wide variety of colors and still have an equally optimal amount of success, but there is obviously a bit of preference for dark because you need to match dark combos. And finally, their unique active skill is a 6-turn cooldown that generates 1 spinner or roulette orb, which will change every 1 second for 3 turns. And then you get the top row, change to dark, and lock all dark orbs. And this is important because you need the extra dark orbs to obviously deal damage and trigger your damage reduction. And the spinner can be used to fish out additional dark orbs, which is for your damage reduction. So the main drawback, or the largest drawback of Mccash, is that their leader skill is the ultimate feast or famine type, because if you match 3 dark combos, you have that gargantuan amount of damage reduction. If you don't match 3 combos, you have no damage reduction and you're going to die to basically anything. So this is obviously a tremendously problematic aspect, and it makes them much less mindless compared to the other 2 7-star cards. But at the same time, if you are able to have a steady flow of dark orbs, either fishing out through spinners or abusing low cooldown dark orb generators such as Chris or Sakura from various collabs, or maybe even Nergigante for their 100% Skyfall buff loop, there is possibilities there, but at the same time, you do run that risk, and any mistake is instant death. There is no forgiving aspect to this leader skill. It's either you are a crazy, unstoppable, unkillable card, or you do tons of damage and are the ultimate glass cannon. So if you want something that's mindless, this is not going to be the leader for you, but if you're able to concentrate and play the spinner game efficiently and have access to Dark Orb generators, Mccash can be one of the strongest leaders you could ever possibly think of, and they are definitely well positioned for any kind of endgame content. For their weapon assist, again, the biggest hurdle is the opportunity of not using their base form. But if you have duplicates, you get a skill boost and a machine killer, which is amazing because machine killers are the most common spawn in World of Carnage 1. And this active skill is on a 10-turn cooldown that gives 2 turns of delay and reduces all unable to match orb effects and removes all binds, but it doesn't remove awoken binds. So it does some nice aspects. You could maybe just abuse it for entering a dungeon to delay and then just utilize it for the extra effective skill boost, which is nice, but the active skill itself may not be sufficient enough for your needs. But then again, if you don't encounter awoken binds and it's only unable to match orb effects, it could be a possible solution. But again, I wouldn't prioritize this over their base form if you only have a single copy. For the 6-star cards, the first is Kukan. So what's Kukan? Good looking. Not much, unfortunately, because Susanoo exists, and their base form is reasonable, but their evolved form gives you much more reliable killer. Again, as mentioned, devil killers are a wonderful damage solution for the majority of content. You have super blind, and you have potentially up to 5 skill boosts, and you have some personal damage, or you have more personal damage and less skill boosts. And you do have 75% damage reduction for a single turn on a 7-turn cooldown with 75% defense break and enhancing fire and wood orbs. So you might think, wow, this is nice stuff. And with current World of Carnage 2, damage reduction is vital. But the biggest problem with Kukan is that Susanoo is really just the king of damage reduction for wood-based teams. He gives you super blind resist as well. He gives you lots of skill boosts. He gives you a longer lasting shield, so you have a bigger window. You have 3 turns to not die versus 1, and it's 60 versus 70 versus 5%. Pretty close. You're probably going to survive anyways. And he also has 6 latent slots, so you can definitely carry a super latent plus 2 SDRs, and he has stronger stats. He can have VDP as well. Like, he could potentially solve many issues, and it's really hard to truly justify using Kukan over Susanoo if you have both of them at your disposal. And because Susanoo is a Pantheon card, there's a strong likelihood you do have them. I own both cards on both my accounts, and I have never found myself wanting to use Kukan over Susanoo as a sub because Susanoo is just a better option overall. And if you don't have Susanoo, maybe you haven't rolled much in the regular rare machine. But then Kukan can be a useful sub in that aspect. But again, if you have Susanoo, you can utilize their weapon assist, which gives you a healer killer and bunch of passive damage, and 2 turns of 75% damage reduction and 100% defense break. So you still need that damage reduction, but now you can inherit this onto your Susanoo, so you have a 2-turn 75% shield with lots of orb enhances and a healer killer so they can punch a little bit harder. It just gives Susanoo a guaranteed active that's useful if he overcharges. And I feel like this is where the most value for this weapon or Kukan would come out is through their weapon assist. For Uiki, they feature a 1-turn cooldown with meaningful personal damage. They have a 7 and 10 combo and then different killers based on their evolution form. In their base form, they are sub-attribute only card, which means they're the final hit. So you could possibly have some interesting shenanigans there. You have super poison resist, but I feel like their dark form is a little bit stronger because you have 2 colors for color coverage, so a wider variety of teams they can be used on. Same active skill. God killers, I feel like, are a little bit more applicable compared to healer killers, so that helps provide meaningful damage against various spawns. And you have super jammer resist, but it's more so I feel like just the fact that you have a more favorable 2 colors, it just helps you fit on a wider variety of teams. But at the same time, if you feel like you can make the sub-attribute only work, maybe you could have some interesting aspects. I can see for like Sena teams, if you can transform, you could argue that, well, you could utilize her as a sub, and then the healer killers help you overcome Sun Quan, because I'm not mistaken, Sun Quan is a healer type spawn, which means you are able to deal with him more easily, because Sun Quan is one of the biggest stopping factors for Fire or Sena teams in Alt World of Carnage 2, because Sun Quan has essentially 75% damage reduction against you, plus his 9% damage reduction shield. It's a lot of damage reduction is the point. But other than that, I feel like her evolved form would be a little bit more valuable just for that reason. And again, God killers are a bit more commonly seen. But if you don't feel like you can leverage enough value out of a 1 cooldown card, like the main aspect is you unlock all orbs. So if you're playing something like Mccash or Sena and locked orbs are going to kill you, this is a solution. But I feel like Horus may be a stronger solution possibly because it gives you the movement time buff, so it provides a bit more coverage, but Oiki actually has meaningful personal damage, whereas Horus probably won't hit anywhere near as hard. But on the other hand, if you need various buffs through an active skill, you can utilize their weapon assist because it gives RCV buff, movement time buff, unlock all orbs, and make fire, dark, and heal. So depending on what other cards you have on your team or what types of teams you're running, that board changer can be a meaningful thing to have. The buffs are always going to be helpful, and a 12 turn cooldown isn't the longest, along with the fact that it gives bind immunity, which gives a bit more flexibility for some cards. But one thing I feel that can be problematic is there are many strong bind immune options available, especially for fire-based teams. You have Medu's Hat, you have the Chinese Celestials, you have Cottons. So it all depends. Is this 40% blind resist going to be meaningful enough? Is that active skill strong enough? You do have options, but at the same time, I still feel like this is a strong weapon assist. Next is Goldfish Girl, and I feel like Goldfish Girl is one of my most used subs for my mono water teams, mostly because I didn't roll Leginia from Monster Hunter for a Mantastic account. And with that being said, Goldfish Girl has many skill boosts, and in their base form, their killers are physical, which is kind of more situational. It's useful in World of Carnage too, but their evolve form has more skill boosts, which is probably what you would want to have for most transforming teams. But the edge niche usage of them is abusing their sub-attribute aspect and their leader skill, which can be utilized with, like, say, Norzas or Blades, and have them as your friend's leader with a damage absorb latent, which means their sub-attribute is the final hit. If it does sufficient damage, it actually kills the opposing spawn and ignores the damage absorbed component. It's a cool thing to do, potentially, but I feel like if you have one copy, their evolve form was going to be their more universally helpful one, because it has one more skill boost, and one skill boost is really a big deal, and dragon killers are an incredibly common spawn. Like, most dungeons feature dragons of some kind. Like AA4, dragons are the endgame spawn. In World of Carnage 2, there are some notable dragon spawns, so having someone who can deal meaningful damage against those spawns can be helpful for sure, but it's also the fact that they have a 5-turn cleric-style active skill. This active skill reduces all unable to match up effects by 5 turns, bind and awoken binds by 5 turns, and then 3 turns of water skyfalls. So clearing 5 turns away is often enough for most mechanics, but you can, like, quote-unquote, upgrade the active skill through other weapon assists in order to give the full clear if that's necessary. That being said, the main drawback I feel for Usil is that you want to take the skill boost plus Super Awakening, which means they're bind vulnerable, which is awkward for a cleric because they're the ones who cleared the bind and awoken binds. So you need to inherit something of bind immunity, but you also need ideally here inherit something of bind immunity that also gives a cleric clearing effect. So there are not too many of those options. Like, if you were fortunate enough to roll Christmas Tamadra, that's the one I use for myself because it gives an extra skill boost, bind immunity, which is everything Usil needs, and you have the upgraded active skills, so to speak. But at the same time, they have a wonderfully low base cooldown, so it can be charged on a frequent basis. And another possible drawback is that they are poorly distributed their stats. They have tons of RCV, which is nice, but water teams tend to have excessive amounts of RCV, partially because if Norz is involved on the team, you tend to heal higher, especially if Norz is your leader, or Crab or Monkey Girl. They all have RCV multipliers. Point of the matter is, health is much more important compared to RCV for water teams, and Usil's stats are not well distributed for that aspect. For her weapon assist, it provides 3 team health awakenings, 40% poison resist, and a full cleric clearing active skill, and then 99 turns of water skyfall. So for water-based teams, this is obviously a wonderful weapon assist solution because you have an active skill that's probably going to be needed, you get the skyfalls, and you have 15% bonus health. And that's huge because it can greatly ease your team building restraints for hitting key health thresholds because you're incorporating poison resist, which you probably like, and you also like to have bonus health and this active skill. Of course, the main drawback I would say for this weapon is that you can get 3 team healths from the Kozumi weapon assist, which is quote-unquote farmable, and it gives bind immunity, and also the water skyfalls are not as helpful for other color teams. But with that being said, there's a 16-turn cooldown, which makes it much easier to, like, not accidentally overcharge if you don't like the active skill, and then if you're patient, you can obviously let it charge up to get the full effect if necessary. So with Goldfish Girl, I feel like you want to really have 2 copies of her because one in her evolved form and one for her weapon assist form. And I use both of these quite frequently overall for myself. For Spider Lady in her base form is less magical because tons of balance killers, doesn't really have much applications. So it's better to look at her evolved form because her evolved form has 3 machine killers, and with World of Carnage 1 being a machine-riddled dungeon, this is a wonderful damage solution against them. They also have a single L Awakening, which will help you unlock the board at any given time. A 3-turn cooldown, which gives you an attack debuff, which is fine because as long as your team is in wood-based cards, you don't care about the attack debuff. In fact, it's beneficial because it overwrites any existing debuff. So any nasty debuff given out by various spawns can be overwritten with relative ease, and it also generates an L of light orbs. So extra light orbs obviously helps any mono light team, but it has definite applications for Ryume. If you don't have a duplicate Ryume, use a Spider Lady as that option instead, so you always have light orb generation every single turn, and her personal damage is definitely meaningful against machine type spawns. Of course, the drawback is you're only good against machine type spawns, so for non-World of Carnage 1 dungeons, she's going to tend to fall a little flatter because she won't have any personal damage really whatsoever. So she becomes kind of like an Ellen Lock, an attack overrider, orb generator, super blind resist. Like, it's still not bad, it's just less value overall. And if you're looking for just raw damage, Pixel Napoleon has way more raw damage compared to Spider Lady. Pixel Napoleon just dishes out so much damage with relative ease. So if you don't need like this type of active skill, the other aspects, the utility she brings is not necessary, or you just are hungering for damage for whatever reason, you could use Pixel Napoleon, but I feel like Spider Lady is probably a much more well-rounded card overall. For her weapon assist, it provides 2 L Awakenings, which is plus 2.25 times personal damage for the owning card, which is a significant damage boost for Ryume teams who are matching Ls. If you stick this weapon on your Ryumes, they're going to be hitting damage cap with relative ease, and that's quite wonderful because damage becomes less of a concern when you're able to hit those damage caps just by matching organically. You don't even need to use attack bursts for this to trigger. And if it does overcharge, you get to unlock the board, you get 2 Ls of light orbs along with an attack buff. So it's actually a reasonably useful active skill. It helps you kill a given floor because of all the light orbs made along with the attack buff. And the drawback for this weapon assist would be, well, it doesn't really counter too many mechanics necessarily, and unless you're a heavy L-based team, you don't really need 2 L Awakenings for a given card. So the value of this weapon assist definitely hinges on if you own Ryume or not. If you own Ryume, this weapon assist becomes much more appealing overall. But again, if you're playing through like World of Carnage 1, her base form is still a tremendously strong damage solution with various other beneficial utility aspects. For the 5-star base cards, the Birdman has now 4 million auto follow-up attack damage, and as long as you match 2 or more colors, you have a large amount of attack multiplier. You get the auto follow-up attack. It might have some applications maybe for 5-star rarity challenges, but the main appeal I feel beyond that is their active skill generating 15 light and 15 fire orbs. It's on a 6x5 board, you're going to be guaranteeing a perfect 10 combo board every single time if there are no locked orbs, and there's no extra animation, so it happens as fast as possible. So for ranking dungeons, it's the best solution because it happens instantaneously. For farming, similar idea. And if you use their base or evolve form, it doesn't matter if you're only utilizing them for the active skill itself. But if you feel like you want to use their inherit, they have 60% jammer resist, a team health, team RCV awakening, and you still get that same perfect 15-15 board. You also get orb movement time and attack buff. And I feel like the base form is really the better form just because of the lack of actual animation, which in turn hastens how fast the animation resolves itself. But if you feel like the attack buff can help you out for killing certain spawns, it can be something to consider. And another thing is, if you do roll in this event, you're probably going to acquire many of these 5-star cards because they have quite high rolling rates overall. For Sharkboy, in their base form, I don't really feel like they have too much value. The most value I feel for Sharkboy comes from their weapon assist because like maybe for like 5-star rarity challenges, you can argue that they could be possibly useful. Maybe they have an attack buff. They make columns of water orbs. Not terrible overall. They have personal damage. They have an okay leader skill of adding effective health. Like, it's okay stuff. And their evolved form, it doesn't provide enough value of anything. It's nowhere near enough VDP damage. It doesn't do anything. You can't system this active skill. Their weapon assist is mostly where it's at because of 2 skill bind resist, which can greatly aid transforming teams who don't have skill bind resist. For example, I remember when I was playing my Yomi Norza teams, if I use Yomi, there's no skill bind resist. If you have Blue Odin, no skill bind resist. You have Lamp, no skill bind resist. It's possible that you have different teams that don't necessarily have to worry about skill bind resist, but if you need skill bind resist on a given team and you're mono water, you get the orb enhances, which is definitely helpful. And the active skill, if it does overcharge, gives you numerous water orbs and bonus movement time and bonus attack. So it can have some applications in that aspect as well, but it's mostly for the double skill bind resist, which is still, I think, reasonably situational overall. For the Snake Spectre, I don't really foresee that much value in their base form overall, unless maybe you want for the 5-star rarity challenges. Again, like, these are highly situational things overall. Like, they do have large amounts of personal damage multipliers, but they have terribly low attack stat. And again, you have to hit 10 combos, which is probably going to be difficult for 5-star challenges, I feel. And if it's not 5-star challenge, you wouldn't want to use them as a sub. Like, they do give you that damage reduction, but if Kukan is outclassed by Susanoo, this card is definitely outclassed by both of those options. So not much merits there, and in all honesty, I would pursue their weapon assist form because it gives you cloud resist and triple team RCV awakening, so it can provide a significant boost to your healing output, which is great for most teams, and the active skill is helpful. You have 2 turns of 75% damage reduction, and you change all orbs to water, wood, light, dark, and heal. So you get a rainbow-ish board changer with damage reduction, which is always helpful, and the ability to heal more. The main drawback is it's quite similar to Amatsu's loot, but Amatsu's loot gives you a skill boost and haste, which helps you instantaneously solve other problems potentially for farming or transforming. So it's not that it's a bad weapon assist, it's just that if you have Amatsu's loot or you have like Fagan Rai's weapon, there are many other strong cloud weapon assists available overall. And then finally we come to the Raccoon. And I feel like the Raccoon is one of the better cards to have lots of duplicates of because their active skill is systemable. With a systemable active skill, you need a 7-turn cooldown and 1 turn of haste. And then if you have that and 4 duplicates total, you can use a single active skill every single turn, which makes a column of dark and a column of heart orbs. So for teams that want to farm content quickly or can proc off their damage multipliers off of any 5 match, such as Super Reincarnated Hino, this can be a dream come true because it's mindless and you might still do meaningful damage. They have 4 skill boosts, so you're able to actually utilize them on a regular basis. If you evolve them, they gain significantly more personal damage by comparison. 1 less skill boost, but more personal damage means that if you have leaders who have bonus combos built in, you could potentially deal large amounts of damage for these given subs while having this systemable active skill. It's like, I feel like it's not like these system type active skills are only great if you really like to farm them, but it's going to be kind of a collateral benefit to rolling this event because if you do, you're probably going to end up with multiple of these cards. For their weapon assist, it's another strong farming solution because it creates 2 columns of darks and 2 columns of heart orbs, so you can potentially break up one of those columns for each element, and you have those remaining columns for the next turn, which can save active skills, and it gives 2 turns of haste, which is effective skill boost or helps you recycle used active skills or charge up active skills that need to be ready for soon turns. It gives you tape resist and L awakening, which are 2 reasonably situational awakenings, and it's rare you're going to need both of them, but if you do need both of them, it's going to be a tremendous solution because it's an unusual combination to have overall. But I feel like the most applications will come from their ability to farm content faster if you have, say, like Triple O as a farming solution who gives bonus combos when you match connected orbs, and the orbs come connected already. So, do I plan to roll in dream rolls? I don't plan on rolling in Mystic Inspectors for my Mantastic account because I dumped so many stones and didn't get Sena, but I did get Ryume and Mccash, and Ryume got buffed. I still don't know if I can really make a Mccash team for them because I don't really have much in the way of Dark Orb generators, but I can possibly look around. But I feel like for Ryume teams, I have a possibility or chance. So, I don't think I would roll in Fantastic. And for Mantastic, I did get Sena reasonably early on, but I don't know if I really want to still because I do have all of the bottom rarity cards and all of the 6-star cards of at least one copy, and I have 2 or 3 copies of Goldfish Girl. So I really would only want more raccoons, I guess, but I don't really want to roll just for raccoons and the really tiny chance I get Ryume or Mccash. So I feel like it's not really a beneficial event to roll in if you have done so in the past, mostly because there's no new cards, hardly any buffs, and there's just a lot of filler in this rare machine overall. But for dream rolls, Mccash for Mantastic, Sena for Fantastic, so I can actually pair with myself, which would be cool. I want Spider Lady for Mantastic because I only have 1 copy, and I like to have 1 in evolved form, 1 for a weapon because it's unique having 2 L's. For Fantastic, more Goldfish Girls is helpful. I don't think I have that many Goldfish Girls. I have probably more than enough anyways, but I don't know. For both accounts, I have all the bottom rarity cards already, so more raccoons is the least worst thing to get multiple duplicates of. So, in conclusion, the Mystics Inspectors event is still home to some of the strongest leaders in the game, but the way the rare machine is set up, you have only a 4% chance to acquire them and no way to actually monster exchange for them. I strongly dislike this setup because it completely throws out the wonderful aspect of the monster exchange system, and it makes rolling quite unfun because there's so little chance of actually being happy. And obviously if you do get them, it's like a dream come true, but like the odds are definitely in Gung-Ho's favor. But with that being said, let me know what you think about this event in the comments below. Are you planning on rolling? And if you did roll, who did you manage to actually acquire? Regardless of all that, hopefully you'll have a fantastic day. I wish you all the best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.